It's really difficult for me, and I think a lot of us, to believe or think that Kegan Kline is not related to the cops turning up at Richard's house and arresting him for a double homicide. Every indication and sign we can gather suggests that it is related. But it is, of course, possible that the two things are totally unrelated and a pure coincidence. Yes, they were looking hard at the Klines. Kegan talked, he yapped, they searched the river, and then out of the blue, this comes up. That's possible. Possible that the timing is pure coincidence. Doug Carter thanked the interrogation officers that interrogated Kegan Kline in the press conference. Like, maybe that's not related. Maybe Doug knows that they worked really, really hard. They thought they were on the right track for years, and he's just thanking them as a bit of a pick-me-up. And that's something I wouldn't put past someone like Doug. Maybe it's coincidence. Kegan Kline's primary device googled the Martin gas station on the day of the murders. And that's where I start to fall off the coincidence train. It's like the final straw when I go down that way of thinking. Like, there's no excuse. Don't forget, there is no excuse for Kegan's device googling the Martin gas station that day. None. And when you take that into consideration, it just gets a bit too much for me. It has to be related, surely. But I have a massive problem with it. And a problem that sends me back in the direction of thinking this was a lone wolf. Hear me out. Let's just speculate for a second that there is a connection. Kegan knows Richard, gave his name, something like that. Can you imagine Richard's reaction at the end of last year when Kegan Kline's ugly pedo head popped up on his TV screen? He must have bricking it. And what is the first thing you would do? If you are Richard and Kegan Kline's head, the Anthony Shots profile, pops up on your TV screen 11 months ago, what's the first thing you do? It's get rid of any, and I mean any, evidence. It has to be. And Richard, obviously, didn't do that. I covered the search and what we know of it so far in my last few videos, but whatever they found, in my opinion, it's damning. It just has to be for a judge to sign off on this and for a prosecutor to say, yeah, let's go. They have to be, they are confident of a conviction here. They said they got the guy. So whatever Richard had in his house, he is facing double homicide charges easily because of it. And we're saying that Richard, when Kegan came on his TV screen, he didn't get rid of it. Why didn't he get rid of it? Okay, maybe he thought Kegan wouldn't talk and he just hung tight for almost a year. But we all had a heads up that Kegan turned and was yapping. He was looking to cut a deal. If he wants to cut a deal, he has to give him something. Otherwise, there's no deal. And this was weeks before the search on Richard's house. And he still kept all those items. That's just madness. You wouldn't do it. If you knew Kegan can lead them back to you, you get rid of all those items as fast as you can. The second you seen his head, the second you seen the Anthony Shots profile come out last year, that stuff will be gone, burned straight away. And I think that's a logical and reasonable thing to assume. But just going back to something small, what I said, what if there is a connection, but Richard was so confident, and it must have been a very high level of confidence, but Richard was confident that despite there being a Kegan Kline connection, they still won't find him. They still won't lead back to him. Did Kegan know his real name? Did he know where he lived? And probably he was just going off a fake name. Maybe he doesn't know where he lived, because why would Richard tell him that? Is that why he googled the Martin gas station that day? Was he meeting Richard there, who was going off a fake name, so Kegan didn't know who he was meeting? Just someone who he communicated with on a burner phone that day, a phone which he later threw into the river on the way home. And I think that's a real possibility also, isn't it? And I know there now I'm after talking myself into a situation, out of it and back into it again. But if there is a connection, which it looks like there has to be, whatever that connection was, Richard was confident it still would not lead back to him, because he decided to keep all the stuff. He kept it. Back to the motive again for a second, which I'm struggling with. I was talking about that in yesterday's video and on a stream last night with Grey Hughes. Amongst other things, we went on a few tangents that I really enjoyed. But a nasty area around the motive is the possibility or the idea that photos or videos were taken at the crime scene. It's in the Ron Logan search warrant affidavit. They believe the bodies were posed and just have a suspicion that maybe photos or videos of sorts were taken. They always told us BG, Bridge Guy, was the same person who is in the Snapchat video and was the same person who killed the girls. If that turned out not to be the case, it would be shocking. To me anyway. And they say they got the guy. Investigations are ongoing, so we suspect they haven't completely ruled other people out of having some kind of involvement. What kind of involvement though? Do they mean they ruled person or persons completely out of the actual actions that day, the murders? Or do they mean the actions of something else? Is it possible that there was something after this? Say Richard committed the murders, lone wolf, photographs taken, sold afterwards, and a Kline collected them off Richard in the Martin gas station. That's a real possibility also, right? And we don't have a timestamp on when Kegan googled that. And that could make sense. It would make sense to why the investigation is still ongoing. They have the guy that did it, but there was something else that happened that day that they want to catch a few others. And I don't know what the connection is, but whatever it is, I do believe Richard was convinced it still wouldn't come back to him. Otherwise, he would have got rid of everything. And I think that's an important note and worth remembering. Other than Richard, I do think that evidence is damning. But other than Richard, I don't know who's involved. I don't know how many people are involved. I don't know what way they are involved. And as you can probably tell from this video, I'm just kind of going from one theory to another, just exploring it a little bit. But I'll be honest, on paper, which is meaningless, it could mean nothing. But on paper, if you were to line up Tony, Kegan and Richard and say which one did he act, the actual murder of the girls, which one is capable of an attack like that, there's only one person I'm picking by a long shot. And his name is not Richard, and his name doesn't begin with a K. But again, that means nothing. That's just on paper. Let me know your thoughts, especially around if there is a connection. Why didn't Richard get rid of everything? That doesn't make sense to me. Good luck. God bless. I hope everyone has a good day.